All right. I think we should get started in here. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Um, I'm the instructor of CSE 8A in summer session 2. Okay. My name is Paul. And we couldn't have lectures on Tuesday, so this is our first day of class here. Welcome. On Tuesday, we had some recordings, and today, I hope you have watched the recording. If not, I would strongly encourage you to go back watch the recording. I want to first talk about the logistics a little bit, remind folks about what you need to do by a certain date. Okay. So let me bring up Add STEM. So this is our Add STEM page. Pretty much everything is going on inside here. Okay, so Add STEM in the lessons area, you have the labs. So we already have our lab number 1. It was yesterday. Okay. So unfortunately, if you didn't watch the recording for Tuesday, you missed the first lab. And in general, we do not allow late work unless it is due to a documented emergency. Okay. So lab is due every Wednesday, other than week 3. And then you have the lectures. So today is week 1, Thursday, and we have lectures for the remainder of the summer session. They're not posted yet because I'm going to change them a little bit. And then for PA, we have one assignment due today, not today, this week by Sunday. So make sure you finish it before the deadline, and you submit it on Add STEM. So come here, write your code, and then submit in here. Okay. So are the labs. For each of the lab, you have 2 components. You have the lab menu. You also have the lab quiz. So the menu is basically some activity you have to do. The quiz mostly is about what we covered as well as what you did in the lab. Okay. So make sure you complete both of them. We also have our syllabus in here. In the recording, I've gone through the syllabus. So this is the Zoom link that we use for office hours as well as for our lectures. My office hours are Monday, 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. So feel free to come to office hours if you need help. For all the class forum, PA submission, the labs, we will use Add STEM. If we are doing the weekly quiz, so let me give you the course schedule here. Okay, so it has a lot of things listed in here. Normally, what is going on is for each week, we have some reading. The reading is ungraded, it's on Stepic. Okay, we have a quiz. Almost every week, we have a quiz. So week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4. We have no quiz for week 5 because it's the final week. So we have a final exam on Saturday. So we don't have a quiz for that week. For PA, normally it is due on Sunday night. We have 5 assignments. Okay. And then lab is Wednesday. That's in general what we have. So for week 1, that's what we have. For week 2, it's similar. Week 3 is a little bit extra. Week 3, we have a midterm on Wednesday. Okay. And because we have a midterm on that day, there's no lab on that day. Oh, like for week 3. Week 3 doesn't have labs. And week 4 is a normal week. Week 5, we have a PA due. Sorry, I think there's a typo. This part is due by week 6. Okay. Yeah, I think maybe it depends on how you count Sunday. Sorry, I think it's basically due on Sunday of week 5. If you think about a week start from Monday, then it's the Sunday of that week. Okay. So we have a lab for week 5. we also have a final, which is the Saturday week 5. In other words, PA5 is still after the final exam. I have to turn in your letter grade by Tuesday, so it's a very short turnaround time. Around week 5, we will send out more announcements of the logistics. Okay, but the number one thing I want to remind every one of us is, please make sure that you stay on top of things. Don't drop the ball. Okay, so 5 weeks fly by really quick. All of a sudden, it's week 5. Okay, if you miss a lab or if you miss a PA, there's no way you can get those points back. So please make sure you turn in your assignments on time. But if there's an emergency, you email me or you kind of post or add them right away. Okay, we can accommodate. In general, we will do our best to accommodate. But if you request an extension on the due date, like PA is due on Sunday midnight, you send me an email at 11 o'clock on Sunday night, say I need an extension. In general, I would require you to provide well-documented materials to support your claim. Okay, so because it's rare emergency happens right before the deadline. Okay, but if you say I have something going on due to health or due to other family issues, I need maybe some extension, we would be happy to give you that, but you got to contact me early. Okay. If there's any OSD situation where Office of Student with Disabilities, if there's any request, please let me know. Okay. I didn't receive anything from, well, maybe there's one student request for 8A, but I don't think we have to do anything extra based on what I read. But if you say my paperwork is pending with OSD, can I have the expected accommodations? I'll be happy to do that without getting those paperwork first. Okay, but let me know as early as possible. Okay. There are a few things I do want to address, which come from summer session 1. Not every one of us are CSE majors. In fact, most likely, a majority of us are not CSE majors. You may be taking the class for your major requirement, or maybe this is the last class for you to pass before you graduate. Okay, I wish you the best, but there's no adjustment of like letter grade or anything like that, because this is the last class you're gonna take. Because the student was pretty mad at me for not adjusting the grade, but I just simply cannot make adjustment because that's the last class you are taking from UCSD. I want to make sure that everyone is fully aware of it. I hope it doesn't come to that point, but in general, I think students, if you work and if you don't miss assignments, if your assignments are not too bad, you will be able to pass the class, right? This class is not meant to be too challenging. It's more like introduction to basic coding, okay? So I want to make sure that's the case. The other thing I want to bring up is please seek help early, okay? I have a student who said, well, my AdStem never worked. And she started to contact me in week 4. And it's just too late. It was back and forth, and it was a hassle to give her the second chance. She has to provide a lot of documentation. So why it didn't work, why she didn't contact early. She was in a very special situation. But if your code doesn't work on AdStem, you want to talk to us early, please. Okay. Out of all my years of using AdStem, she was the first case that AdStem didn't work on her computer for her browser, but you never know. Maybe it's going to happen again in this summer session. If that's the case, please seek help. The way you can get help is, number one, you can come to tutor hours and look for help. Okay, so you can find all the tutor hours, where is it? Important links. So I think calendar. Let me go there. Okay. CSE 8-day calendar. You can see it in here. So Thursday, we have Andrew's tutor hours, and you can see their Zoom link. Go there, seek for help, okay? the first thing that if a student say, it's been 2 weeks since my exam worked, the first thing I will ask the student is, why didn't you seek help early? Right, so if there's anything we can resolve as quickly as possible, we should do it. Please do not wait. Okay, please do not wait. You can also come to office hours. If there's any quick question you want to ask, you can also ask on AdStem. In general, our staff will keep an eye on it fairly closely, so your question will be answered. Okay. When you post on AdStem, please make sure that you don't post your code in a public post. Okay, if that's the case, that's considered to be a violation of academic integrity. So please do not post your code publicly. You can share your code in a private post, that's fine. Okay, but going to the tutor hours is very useful. Our discussions is mostly Q&A. So if you go to discussions with some questions, our staff would help you, but we are not going to make any active presentation during the discussion sessions for the summer session. Okay. For the exams, it will be on this website called Gradescope, and all of you should be there now, I believe. All right, so we have quizzes. So is the midterm and the final. They're all going to be in here. It's timed. You have 30 minutes to finish the quiz. Okay, on Friday, like tomorrow, this is when you're gonna do the quiz. The quizzes, they're all open book, open notes, open Python environment. So you can write code, you can look at the notes, you can look at the book. So it's all okay, but you cannot collaborate with anyone. Okay, so that's what you need to do. We don't drop any assignment, we don't drop any quiz, we don't drop anything. Okay, so please again stay on top of things. Okay. Now, I think I just want to use the first 10 minutes or so to stress on the importance of these logistic items. Are there any questions or comments? If you have questions, feel free to use the chat, either public chat or private chat, or unmute and ask. Any questions?
I have a question about the lectures. So on Tuesday, I watched the recording and you didn't show us how to do every single one on like the hello world and those things. Are we expected to like complete them all for grade, or is it just follow along?
It's just a practice. The coding projects for lectures is practice. You're not graded on that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it's better you do it, but not required. Any other questions? And the video recordings that we have on AdStem, they're mostly from my summer session 1, but I expect everything to be almost identical in here. So I will just put the recording in here. And also I'm recording the class now. I will post these recordings that I'm recording now on Canvas. So since they're going to be very, very similar, so you can watch either recording, I would say it's fine. Okay. The question about quizzes are mostly, I think every quiz is multiple choice. Quiz are multiple choice, midterm is multiple choice, final is multiple choice. But there is no partial credit. Like if I say select all the correct answers, if there are 3 correct answers, you pick 2, unfortunately that's a 0. Okay. And the reason is simple because everything is open book, open notes. So grading wise, we will be strict on the quiz and midterm. Okay. Any other questions? Those are good questions. Okay.
I have a question about how to find the quizzes. So I logged in via like the link that you sent for Gradebook and I logged in. Is it gonna just appear when the quiz is posted, or where am I gonna find it?
This one, like the Gradescope, it should appear in there once I publish it. I haven't published it yet.
Okay, so it's gonna be like on my dashboard then.
Yeah, it will be there. It will be there. You know, let me try. Let me see. I think by default it should be published. It's can other people see the first quiz on Grayscope? I just want to make sure that you can see it. Anyone can see the for the lab, you should do it alone. Okay, everything should be done alone. Okay. Friday quiz is open note. Lab quiz are open note. Okay. Can people see the quiz one? I think I said it. So section. I think you should be able to see quiz one on Grayscope. Can people not see it? Like quiz one, week one quiz on Grayscope. Can people try it? Okay.
Mine
Not
says the instructor hasn't released any assignments yet.
over here. Okay. The assignment settings. Able. I can see it here. Release. Customize dates and student visibility. Interesting. Customize turn off student visibility will stop assignment. Okay, I think it will appear tomorrow by 12. Okay, tomorrow, well, tonight midnight. Okay, tonight midnight. Okay, that's what you need to do. Okay, so it should be there. It should be there by tomorrow morning. It just I think it's setting it up only when the thing is released. I think they just added this feature over summer. The other thing, I will send an email about financial aid being withheld unless I get academic activity from instructors. On Canvas, you should see, let me go to Canvas, hold on. On Canvas, you should be able to see a, let's see, no, there's summer 1, summer 2 in here. You can see this financial aid. You should complete it. And this would automatically authenticate your academic activity. And that's what you need to do. So if you are on financial aid, you may want to do this right away. Okay, it's just a silly quiz, doesn't really ask you too much. It just shows that you are actually doing something. Okay, I don't know the entire purpose of doing this, but I think there are some regulations that is going on. So we have to do this. So make sure you want to do this. Otherwise, your financial aid is on hold, which is not good. Okay. Next thing. Can we use workspace in AdStem to do the quiz questions? Yeah. Yeah, you can write code using the AdStem workspace. That's fine. Okay. Open book, open notes on quiz means we can run code. Yeah, you can run code. Okay. So you can run code, you can read the notes, read the websites that we have used. You are not allowed to search online. That was the answer to this one. That's against the rule. Okay, you can use our Canvas, you can use AdStem. That's totally fine. Nothing beyond that. Aesthetic is also fine. The textbook is fine, but other than that, no other websites are allowed. Okay. Any other questions? All right. So make sure you do this. Okay. I set the deadline to be tomorrow, but you want to do this as quickly as you can. Okay. Can't publish the no student submission. Can you all see this first day survey, financial aid? On Canvas, you can see it. Can you actually do it? It feels like Greedy survey. Can you all actually do it? Yeah, people can do
Yes,
it.
I was able to do it.
And you all didn't get, for those of you who did it, didn't get any letter from financial aid office, anything like that? Oh, okay. Yeah, it's just, it's something, bureaucracy, I guess. Now, let's get back to our class then. Okay, thank you for confirming about the financial aid. So make sure you do it as quickly as you can. Now, the way that we're gonna organize our lectures are gonna be like this. We'll talk about the materials for 50 minutes, take a break, another 50 minutes, take a break, and then the last 50 minutes. So it's gonna be 3 50-minute long sections. That's what we'll be doing. Okay. So the first break will be at 11:50 and then 12:50, and then we'll finish around 1:50. A lot of times we'll finish a little bit early, unless there are questions. Number one, I do want to stress questions are always welcome. Please ask questions if you are confused or if anything that is unclear. Okay, I'll be more than happy to explain. Okay, so there are no silly questions. If you ask a question, there are at least 5, 6 other people who are in the same boat as you are. So please ask questions if there's anything. And normally I would prompt for questions at the end of each slide or near the end of each topic. So if you have questions, you can use chat, definitely. But if you want to speak, just wait when you are prompted for questions. Okay, and that's it. All right. Any questions before we get started in here? All right. So today we have a few topics: conditionals, strings, and lists. Okay. Conditionals is in fact pretty straightforward. What they do is they in general allow you to make a decision. I don't know why my screen seems to be lagging for some reason. Must be something going on my machine. Let me close a few things. I feel like my video is lagging. Okay, whatever. So for the conditional statements, what we have is we are looking at the making a decision in our program, and if you think about what kind of decision do I make, like if this thing happens, you do something. Like if it's 11 o'clock on Tuesday or Thursday, you come to CSE day. Else you don't do it, right? So the idea is these conditions would allow you to describe if something happens, your code should respond in a certain way. And these conditionals, in general, they use these Boolean operations. So bool is a type in Python. What it does is to say it's either true or false. That's what it does. Okay. So if this thing is true, it means the condition is good, you do something. When the condition is false, you don't do it. You do something else, for example. And to give you the way to describe a complicated situation, what in general people do is they can use these operators. They're called Boolean operators, not, and or. This order tells you which one is more, I wouldn't say more important, like which one has higher precedence. Just like when you say, when you do math, you multiply, divide first before you add and subtract. In here, if they all appear in the same expression, you're gonna do not first, and then and then or. That's what happens, okay? So what does not mean? Not means if it's true, not, let me write out this logic. So for not x, right? If your x is true, then not x would be false. If x is false, not x is true. Pretty straightforward. Okay, so it's the opposite logic. Now, how about and? If you say you have x and y, you say x and y. You can write it out literally as and. You are looking at the relationship between x and y. So if x is true, y is true. If both of them are true, the answer is true. For example, when you graduate, you say, I need to get a car. Cars are now very expensive, okay, but I may get a discount if I'm a new graduate from a college. So, and also you may get a discount if you are a veteran. We do have a lot of veteran students in our student body. So you say there is a special discount for veterans who are veteran and a new graduate. Then you use the and to say veteran and new graduate. If both of them are true, you get this special discount, right? So when both of them are true, the answer is true. But when one of them is false, the whole thing becomes false. That's the and logic, right? So A and B. The last thing is A or B. So if you have X and Y, those are two variables, and you say X or Y. The idea is if both of them are false, the whole thing will be false. But if any of them is true, the whole thing will be true. True, true would also be true. So that's the idea of this logic. I said, well, when do I need something like this? Normally, you're trying to get a Boolean expression, like what we recorded for Tuesday is like A is bigger than B or C is bigger than 7. For those kind of Boolean expressions, you can use not, and or to combine them together to give you a good logic that you need. Okay, and that's all you need to describe any logic, whether it's an assignment for CSE 8A or a logic you need for the to send a rocket to Mars. You can use the same set of and, or, and not to describe it. Okay. Any questions about this? All right, let's look at one example. What would you say the answer to this expression is? Okay, so I will start up a vote. So you can vote in whenever you are ready. What would you say the answer is? Vote in? Okay. Well, it looks like we totally disagree with each other quite a bit on this one. Let's stop it here. Okay. If you look at the vote, A and B dominates, but I've said those are possibly the two possible answers we're having here. So is it true or false? Let's check. If num is 12, num doesn't equal to 12. This isolation mark equals means doesn't equal to. So since num is 12, this is false, right? Num is the same as 12. So we have a false in here. So false and num is bigger than 0. That's true. Or what does this mean? Num mod 2. This sign means remainder. Okay. Means if I use num divided by 2, what is the remainder of this division? If you use integer division, like 12 divided by 2, the remainder will be 0. the quotient will be 6. So this would give me, so this left side is 0, 0 double equals 1, that's false. So you're gonna do AND first, false and true, you get false, false or false, you get a false. The answer is false. Questions about this one? So it's not true. Okay. So when do I need to use mod? Mod, a lot of times you are using it to judge whether it's even or odd. If anything divided by 2, the remainder is 1. You know this number is an odd number, or it's an even number. The other thing that you use mod is when you try to wrap things around. Let's say I have 10 students and I'm asking them to form a circle. I say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then the next person I will count is 1 again. If you're doing something like this, you can use mod to help you bring it back to the beginning. And that's fine. Okay. Any questions about this one? Num doesn't. This exclamation mark doesn't connect with num. It connects with doesn't equals to. This means doesn't equal to. You are comparing the left side with the right side. Double equal means equals. That's what it is. Okay. Any questions about this? Any other questions? All right. How about the next one? How about this one? What does this one do? Let's vote in. All right. A lot of us are saying false. All right, let's look at this one. Let's see. So first thing num is 17, right? Not this thing or this thing and that thing, right? So not has the highest order precedence. So it's not num equals to 17. That's true. Not true will be false, right? This thing is false. So false or num is bigger than or equal to 17. That is true. And num divided by 2. What is this thing? This thing means integer division. It goes like this. For example, 17 divided by 2, Python would give you 8.5. If you say 17 divided by 2 using double slashes, it means keep the result as a whole number. You're gonna get 8. Okay. This can come in handy when you have to do some math, when you have to deal with like discrete things like pixels, location. So in general, if you say I want the result to be a whole number, use this double divide. So 17 double divided by 2 is 8. 8 is same as 8. That's also true. So if you look at the entire structure, is false or true and true. This part, I think and should have a higher order precedence than or. If I think this thing should be false, because or is on the left side. So this part would see. So not true is false. This is true. This is true. So I think either way, I think it should be this part. This thing will be true. False or true, you get a true. Did most of us vote for the wrong answer? I think it should be true. What confused us? Any questions about this? A majority of us voted for B, which is false. I think it should be true.
I'm confused. Can you explain that one more time? Because you said you're like, oh, because this is on the left, it has a higher presence, and then I got lost.
No, the or and, if there are two ors, then it will go from left to right. But since there's an and, there's or, and has a higher precedence, and then or has a lower precedence. So you do and first, and T true and true is true, and then you do the or, false or true equals to true. That's what it does. Okay. What integer division, right? This one is integer division. Maybe that one was this one throw some of us into the wrong conclusion. Okay. Let's run this one, right? Where do we have it? Here. So mystery function. Some of you were asking on ISTEM, like, what does Python-i do? Python-i means you're gonna get into the shell of Python. You can run code in here. So you say num equals to 17, and then you say not num. What's the okay? Not num double equals 17, and num is bigger than or equal to 17. No, this is or. Or, and this is and. Num is num divided by 2 is the same as 8, right? So this is the and part. So not claims this operand first, and then you have the and then in the end you do or. It's just like you do the parenthesis first, and then you do the power, then you do multiply. Here is not is the most important thing, and is next, and then or. Okay. Any questions about this?
Professor.
Okay.
What's the difference between double equals, and just single equals?
So double equal means compare. It's like I know in math, right? There is no difference between single equal and double equal, but in coding there is, because when you say I have two things, right? They are connected by equal signs. There are two potential operations you can do. For example, let me use the notes in here. So you can say x7, right? There are two ways. If you say x equals to 7, this means it's an action. It's give 7 to x, to this variable x. X would have a 7 sitting in there now. If you say x double equals to 7, this is more like a question. Is x the same as 7? the answer will be true and false. That's the difference between them. So if you want to say, I want to assign something to a variable, then you use single equal. But if you say, I want to compare things, then you use double equal, right? So I know it's different, right? In math, okay, x equals to 7. Well, basically saying, oh, x is the same as 7, right? And then sometimes in math we say, if n is 7, what is n squared plus 5, right? In math is kind of what you have. This part is more like a question. Is x the same as 7? This part is more like assignment. So math, you didn't differentiate those two things. In coding, you will have to. Are you asking a question, or are you trying to give this variable a value? Any other question? All right. Let's. I don't know what's going on here. How come there are so many black dots all of a sudden appearing on my screen? Now, one more exercise in here. What will be printed by this code here? I have a function, right? In the recording for Tuesday, we have a function. If n is less than 0, this is what we do. And we print out this thing. What would you say the output is? So voting. All right, so a lot of us saying B. Hopefully we're getting this one right this round. Let's see. So mystery negative 42, right? So when you call a function, just as a quick review, we are passing in this data to n. So now n has a value of negative 42. N, we call that the parameter of the function, okay? This is the argument. This is the parameter. So this negative 42 is given to this n. Now, if n is less than 0, we are multiplying n with negative 1, so we are returning positive 42. So when you print it out back in here, it's going to print out positive 42. I don't see any issue with this. Questions about this part? All right. How about this one? This one is a little bit crazy. We have if else inside if else, right? So for these conditionals, what we are looking at is you have the if statement, you have the condition, right? If it's true, you will execute the body of if. Else doesn't have a condition. Then this is the body of else. And this part is optional. In other words, it's possible that you have an else. You have if without else. Why do we use else statements? Else is the opposite, right? You say if it's gonna rain, I'm gonna bring the rain may not be a good idea. Like if the weather is warm today, I'm gonna wear short sleeves. Else, I will wear long sleeves. That's when you need else statement. It's basically if the condition you're checking is not good, what would you do? But that part is optional. Sometimes you can have else. Sometimes you say I don't need else. Then you don't have to have else. Okay. What will be printed out by this code? 14. Right. Let's stop the vote. I think we have a strong consensus. Hopefully that's the right answer there. So B looks right. Let's check, right? So this part we're checking if num is in English is an even number, right? If num even, yes. If it's not even, you're gonna go to the else. But if it's even, you stay in here. The next thing is if num mod 3 is the same as 0, is a multiple 3. 8 is not a multiple 3, so this part is false. You execute this part. So divided by 2, not by 3. That's what we have. Any questions about this part? Okay. So let me write it out in here. If, like for example, if you're checking this condition and then you're checking the condition B, else you're checking and then else you say if C and then else, right? So the thing in here is it possible? See drawing. Okay. This is part S1, S2, S3, S4. If you look at these conditions, like when would S3, when would I execute this part? Right? When would this statement be executed? For A, B, C, right? You can have them being true, 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 false, true, false, true, false, 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 true. Which one do you think is the right answer? Vote for A, B, C, D. Just a quick exercise in here. What would you say? When would this part be executed? Oh, maybe I have a E. More than one. What would you say? When would this statement be executed based on the logic of A, B, and C? So if this is true, if this is true or false, if this is true or false, which one would make sense? So you must be clear on the logic. We'll finish this exercise, then take a 10-minute break. Okay. Finish this up. We will stop here. I will stop here. Let's see. A lot of us voted for D. The idea is if you are in here, right, you must be inside this else. If you're in the else, this A must be false. So C or D may be correct. It's never going to be A or B. So for whatever B is, it doesn't really matter because I'm not even looking at B now. In order for you to execute S3, C must be true. So A must be false, C must be true. So the only thing that would work is this D. Right, so D is the right answer, not C, not C, okay. It's possible more than one of the combinations, right, but not the ones that were listed. For example, B can be true and false, it doesn't really matter. B can be true, B can be false, you're always gonna execute S3. Okay. Let's take a break. Come back 12:01, 12 o'clock, and then maybe we can do one more exercise on this part before we move on to strings. Okay. Break time, around break time. Come back 12:01. All right, folks, we'll get ready to come back in 1 minute. Okay. We'll get started in 1 minute. All right, so let's get started in here. Okay. So this is our second session this morning. Let's get the ball rolling. Another exercise about this problem, and then we'll move on. So for example, we can also ask, well, when would S4 run? Right? When would this thing run? In here. If you look at it, in order for this thing to run, you must be inside here. But I know C must be false. If C is true, then I will not run S4. So C is false. Now how about A or B? Well, if I'm inside this else, A must be false. As for what B is, it doesn't really matter, right? So that's how you analyze it. You go backward, trace back. Okay. Any questions about this logic problem?
I had a question.
Oh, go for it.
Yeah, so for the one before, you said that the answer would be D for S3. I'm just a little confused about that because so we know that A has to be false because we want to go to the else. So that's one false. And then wouldn't the next condition be true because if C, that first condition is true, so it'd be C. The answer would be C.
Well, if you look at the list in here is A, B, C, right? Statement A should be false. Statement B doesn't really matter what you have. The third column should be true.
Okay.
So A must be false, C must be true. But for B, this B doesn't really matter.
Okay. Okay, got it. Thank you.
Any other questions?
My question is, why doesn't B matter? Or why? Yeah,
Why do you think B would matter? That's a question I want to ask. Why do you think B would matter in here?
in my head, it would be false so that it can go down to C, S3.
So what if B is false, it will go to C?
Yeah, that's how I read it, but I don't know if that's what you're supposed to do.
So this B and this C, they are not related at all. This if and else, they are together. This if and else, they are together. This if and else, they are together. So because of indentation, right? So this is how Python looks at the breakdown of this code. This if and this else, they are aligned, so they are together. This if and this else, they are aligned, they are together. So it's this one. So if B is true or false, it's only going to affect S1 and S2. It's not going to make you jump over here. That's why. The reason why I ask you is there must be something that is confusing to you. So that's why I ask you. I just want to make sure that maybe there is the way that you think, oh, if there's this if this is false, you jump over to that if. No, you have to go level by level. The outer level, it must be false, so it will be here. It has nothing to do with this part anymore. You are looking at this part. That's why B doesn't matter. Any other questions?
Wait, so why does A have to be false?
Why do you think A can be true?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, so right, if A is true, then you are never gonna run this thing because if and else they're mutually exclusive. If true runs, then if this one is true, then you are never gonna run anything on the else side. False would also make you run S4, right? False, if this is false, it will be here. It doesn't really matter what B is, and C must be false for you to run S4. So this is not a complete list. If you look at the complete list, you have 8 possible combinations. We can't vote for all those 8, right? Our Zoom vote can only go from up to E. So that's why. Yeah. Any other questions? So when you analyze this thing, make sure you go it level by level. Okay. All right. Coming back. This one equals to 15. I think we probably will get this one. Let us focus on this part. You have this block of code in here. Else if is a condition that you can use to ask subsequent questions, right? So what does else if do? You basically check, is this thing good? If this thing is good, you execute statements A, then you skip everything with if, else, and else. You skip the rest. But if A is false, you check this second condition. If this second condition is true, you execute this part, skip the remainder of else, if, and else. But if this thing is false, you look at the next thing. If all of them are false, you can run this else in here. The else ifs, they are all optional. In other words, you can have if, else, if without the other two, that's fine. You can have unlimited number of else ifs. The else part is also optional. You can just have if, else if without this else, that's fine. In other words, else if binds itself to the leading if, and they're all together. They're a single block of code. Okay. And now we have this if, else. What is true about these 2 blocks of code? A, B, C, D, E. Let's vote. To learn coding well, you don't have to be a mathematician, but your logic must be correct. Right? So logic is more important than math here. All right, so most of us voted for one of the choices. I don't want to say which one, but it looks like it should be a lot of voting for B. Okay, a lot of voting for B. Let's check. All right. They're basically identical. I can tell they're not. Okay, they're not. Next thing. For block 1, it is impossible that A and D are both executed because they are all together. If you run A, it means condition A is good. Then you're going to skip the rest. So D will never run. If you run D, it means you reach to this else. All the other conditions must be false before you can reach else. So B is correct. Maybe D is also good. We'll see. Right? How about C? For block 2, it's impossible A and D can both run. That is false. This if statement by itself is a standalone if. This if by itself is a standalone if. It just doesn't have a matching else. This if else, they are together. So if condition A is true, I'm able to run this statement A. If condition C is false, I'm able to run D. So A and D, in fact, they can both run at the same time. So that's why only B is the right answer. Only B is the right answer. Questions about this part? All right. I didn't see anything in the chat. How about this thing? Can I say this? For block 1, only for block 1, okay? A, B, C, D can maybe let me write it out in here. 1 and only one statement from A, B, C, D can run. At any given time for block 1, one and only one of them, statements, either statement A, statement B, statement C, statement D will run. Is this true or false? A is true, B is false. I'm only looking at block 1. Is this true or false? Okay, so 14. There's one question about else if. Else if means if the condition before was false, you check another condition. That's what it is. Okay. Is this true or false? One and only one of them will run. It's guaranteed. You must have one. And it's also guaranteed you can only have one. I would assume every one of you have access to add stem, right? If you don't, you need to let me know ASAP. My student just emailed me. Well, she already missed, unfortunately, the first lab. It's bad. All right, so All right, the vote is in. A lot of us saying yes, and the answer is true, right? The answer is true. One and only one of them can run. Not the other one. Okay. So for block 2, you can't say this. In fact, it's possible that A runs, B runs, and C runs. But C and D cannot run at the same time because of this mutually exclusive situation. Okay. Any questions about this part?
Can you explain why it's true again?
Why do you think it's not true? Can you explain your thoughts?
I just don't understand what the if means conditions.
Okay. So else if means if you have, or else if has a matching if in here, right? Has a matching if. So basically, if this condition is false, else if would allow you to check for the next condition that you need, right? So this one is the third condition. You can basically check multiple conditions because if can only check one condition, and the matching else is the opposite of that condition. But using else if you can have multiple conditions that you check, but at any given time, if one of the conditions is good, the remaining conditions will be skipped. Again, you have to understand this if, else, if, and else, they are together. They form a single block of code. This one have 3 blocks. This one, and this one. So logic-wise, only one of them can run. Because if A is true, then statements A would run, B, C, D will be skipped. If A is false and B is true, then B would run. Statements A is not run, and then CD will be skipped, and go on. Okay. When folks ask a question, I do want to ask you why you think it's not, because that's the only way that I would know what confuses you. Okay. So sometimes I will repeat the same thing I just said. It's not going to help. It's important that you tell me why you think that's the case. Okay. Are there other questions?
So for block 2, since after the if on A and B, since there's no else, does that mean block 2 is basically like stuck to just A? It can't go further than that, or like you can't run the other ones since there's no else?
No, else part is optional. Else part is optional. What it means is this part, if else, I think that there's some confusion about what if else does, right? So if you have something else, you have the other things, right? So these are the statements. If means if this condition is true, you run that. Else, if this condition is false, you run this part. But this else part can be omitted. This else part means if you don't have else, it means you run this if the condition is false, you just don't do anything. You move on to the next piece of code, the next line of code. It doesn't say, oh, if this thing is false, you're stuck. No. So if this thing is false, you just don't do anything. You move on to the next one. So in here, if A is false, you are gonna just say, I don't do anything now. And then I just look at B. It doesn't mean that you're stuck in there. Any other questions? All right. It looks like this is giving us some trouble, huh? It's good to know. Let me do something here. Okay. So I have this statement. You tell me what's gonna be the value of x. If x equals to 10, okay? I say if x is bigger than 5, x plus equals to 5. Else if x is bigger than 13, x minus equals to 10 if x is bigger than 5, bigger than or equal to 5, x plus equals to 1, else x minus equals to 10. That's minus equals to 3. All right, so now what's going to be the value of x at this point? A is going to be, I need to make up this one. Hold on. So it's 6. B is going to be 16. C is going to be 12. D is something else. How about that? What's going to be the value of x? What's going to be the value of x in here? Vote in whenever you're ready. Again, it's logic, right? You must think about this piece of code as, okay, who is with whom? You can't say if you have a piece of code that everyone's together. No. Who is with whom? And then what do you do at certain points? Once you can't segment the code, you look at each of them one after another. Plus equals to 5, it means increase x by 5. Minus equal to 10 means decrease x by 10. We talk about this in the video recording for Tuesday. Okay. All right. We'll stop the vote. About maybe half of us got it. Okay, so let's try it, right? First, you have to block it, right? Which one are together? If, else, if they're together, these are together. If match with the else, yeah? So it's okay. If x is 10, first thing, x is bigger than 5, that's true. I increase x by 5, x is now 15. But because of the if, else, if, I'm not gonna do this thing anymore, this part will be skipped. That's the logic for if, else, if, and else. I'll move on to the next block. X is bigger than 15. X is now 16. So B is the right answer. At least 50% of us got it out of the people who voted in. Okay.
I have a question. Why did you skip the elif once you saw that x is 15? So is it because elif, if it's true, then I don't do it. If it was false, then I do it.
Why do you think it's gonna still do it? What's the logic based on your understanding? What's the logic for if, else, if, and else if? What's your understanding of it?
My understanding is I skipped it because the previous thing was true. So if the previous thing was false, then I would do it. Or
yeah, that's right. That's right. But this thing is true, isn't it?
So if this were to be false, so say like we changed the number to 5, like x is equal to 5, then I would apply it, or 4, then I would apply the next thing versus skipping it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So your understanding is right, but maybe the logic confused you. Your understanding is right. Any other questions?
What does the x plus and x minus mean?
I explained it. X plus equals to 1 means this is increase x by 1. X minus equals 10 means decrease x by 10. Okay. Any other questions?
So since we know the logic to like check ourselves, we just basically are putting this on ED, like we can check our logic after we read it.
Yeah, you can. But in the quiz, in the exam, you may not have enough time. Well, I'm not gonna, if I ask you this, I'm not gonna give you a piece of code. You can copy paste in there. It's gonna be a picture. It's gonna be a long piece of code. So it's gonna be hard for you to type it in and then run it and see what the answer is. And I may ask you, how many times did x change its value? Instead of what's gonna be the value of x? So you must understand the logic. So running it is gonna only help you when you try to understand the concept, but it may not help you during the quiz or during the exams, if that makes sense. No? Any other questions? Yeah, you can definitely run this code. You're gonna see x equals to 16. Let's see. Say Python exercise 2.py. I need to print x. Yeah. And then you run it. Yeah, you're gonna see 16. Okay. Maybe one last exercise before we do it. How about if x equals to I don't even want to give you a choice. You figure it out. Okay, so if x equals to 12, what would you say the answer will be for x? When I print out x. You figure it out. I'll give you 1 minute. Can you do it? Logic. Well, what if you said 18 and they got the sum up? Maybe it's gonna be 18, right? We'll see, right? Okay, let's work on this together. Okay, how does this work? Again, you check this condition is false, so I don't do it. Check the next condition, that's also false. So I don't do any, this part, I don't do anything. And this part, x is, sorry, my bad. What I was saying, this part is true, right? This part is true, my bad. So you're gonna be x plus equals 5, this is x will be 17 now. But if I execute the first part, I will skip this part, right? This part is skipped because the previous part is true, so I skip this part. And everything beneath it, if is part of the if else. And then I look at this part is also true, x will be 18. And I skip this else because I ran the if. So it's 18. So that's correct. Right. Any questions? How about this one? Else, how about I do a if x is x mod 2 is the same as 1, x plus equals to 5. If x is 15, and I change this. Let me see. What's going to be the value of x in here? Oh, so it would never run. also will run if the condition is right. If the condition is not right, it will not run. So given this one, what do you think the value of x is at the very end? It looks like we're getting better. We see two 21s. Maybe it's both of you are wrong. Maybe both of you are right. Logically, that's the potential outcome. Remember, people, we're dealing with the machines, right? When you write a piece of code, you're talking to this piece of metal and silicon. It has no emotions. It has no kind of, right? If it's yes, it's yes. If it's no, it's no. There's no human factor in here. Okay? All right. Let's look at this one. Is it 21? Maybe. So again, you have to know this part is together. These two parts are together. So the first condition, x is bigger than 15. X is bigger than 5, so this one is true. Then x will become 20. And this else if, no matter how complicated, how fancy it is, because the if statement has already run, the else if will be skipped. You come immediately over here, x is bigger than 15, x will be 21. Right, x will be 21. Any questions?
Can you show us an example where, like, for example, you make x 4 in the beginning, and then we do have to run?
The else if?
Yes.
Yeah, so right now, these conditions, as you can see, if this is true, it's guaranteed this part is also true. Oh, sorry, if this is true, this part is also true, right? So this else if can never run in this situation. But if you change the condition, if x is less than 5, and you say this maybe less than 5 is too extreme. Let's say if x is less than 4, and I say this thing is 3, this part is false, this part is true. You run this, and then x minus equals to 10, x will become -7. -10 mod 2, negative value is mod 2. It depends on how mod is designed. Let's see. In Python, I know in Java it doesn't do what it's supposed to do. Let's say Python-i. I say -7 mod 2. Yeah, I think it gives the right remainder. So this part will be true. Then you increase x by 5. So x is now -2. And then this part would run because this part will be false. This part will be true. X will be -5, I think, in the end. So it's possible this else if would run. And you may also have other else ifs. For example, there's an else if, I don't know, x is mod 2 is the same as 0. I'll do something, right? So if this thing is false, you check this thing. If this thing is also false, you check this thing. So you only get to reach here when both the if and the else if are false. Just the logic in here. Any other questions? I think we have spent time on this one and hopefully it's start to make sense. Other questions? All right. Now let's do a quick piece of code and then we'll stop here. Write a function that takes a number as a float and return 0 if number is 0, return 1 if the number is positive, return -1 if the number is negative. And we have this sign of a number. So here's the link to the code. So you can code it up and give me a vote once you are done. Code it up. hopefully you are coming to lecture on a laptop. If you are coming to lecture on a cell phone, it's not the best venue. And cell phone have too many notifications. You're going to be constantly distracted. Use a laptop. Give me a vote once you are done writing that function. We are moving slightly slower than summer session 1. Interesting. We are fine. We have more questions than summer session 1, which is good. Okay. Let me see if I can post the video. All right, so one of us is done. It shouldn't be this slow. Don't forget to vote in. All right, so let's do this together, okay, due to time. So you want to define the sign of a number, and you should check, right? If num is bigger than 0, I'll return 1. Else if is elif. Num is less than 0, I'll return -1. Make sure you pay attention to the indentations. In the end, can I just do this? Can I just return 0? Do I need else? Like, do I need else? A, yes, B, no. In other words, should I say, let me, so vote in A or B. Do I need else, return 0, or can I just say return 0? A, yes, B, no, vote in. Okay. Do I need else? All right, so we'll stop the vote. The answer is no, you don't need this else. Is about why don't I need else? Because if you look at the logic, if neither of them would run, if this is false, this is also false, none must be 0. I should simply return 0. You say, well, what if I have else? Would this hurt me? The answer is no. Having else in here is also okay, because this else would run when both of them are false. So either way, you don't have to have else. You can have else. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. Any questions? So, and that's it, right? This is the code. You know what? I would just leave the else in here, so it looks cleaner. Okay. All right, so that's this exercise. We are done with if-else branching statements. All right. Any questions before we move on? We're done with conditionals, branchings. We're gonna get into strings and a little bit about lists. All right. So let us look at lists, right? Strings. Strings and lists are very similar. If you look at strings, right, you say name equals to CSE 8A. What does this one do? It basically, you can think it's a collection of individual characters. CSE-8A, each of them is a character, and we give each character a location number. We call this the index of that character. So it starts from 0 in here all the way to 5. Okay. So 0, 1, all the way to 5 in here. If you look at why do we count from 0, it comes from the fact that, in fact, these are not necessarily exact locations. They are the offsets. So we call them the index, but they are also, their official meaning is they're offsets. Okay. So what does it mean to have offsets in here? It kind of comes from this part where this number tells you how far away you are from the very beginning of the string. How many characters away are you from the beginning of the string? If you look at the 0th character, the offset is 0. That's why we start to count from 0. So 0, 1, all the way to size -1. The length of the string -1. That is all the characters. Python also allows negative index, which is a very dangerous thing because other than Python, most other languages don't allow negative index. So if you look at -1 all the way to -6, if you go backward, this last character has a index of -1 all the way to -6. And that's it. Okay. So this is kind of how you can access individual characters. Let me give you a quick demo in here. Let me do this. List and functions. So let us say name equals to CSE-8A. I'll just write it in here, it's easier. So let's say name equals to CSE-8A. How many letters there are? You can use the length of this one will tell you there are 6 letters, 6 positions from 0 to 5. And I said, what's the 0th element? Name square bracket 0 would allow you to say, what's the 0th character? It's letter C. Right? If I say, what's the last character? Name 5 equals to A. And then hey, what's the -1th character? Is also A. What is the -6th character? It's C. So it does allow you to have negative indexes, but what is the -7th character? You're gonna see an error. I have no letter whose position is -7. You're gonna see this out of range error. Similarly, if you go positive, say, what's the 6th character? You don't have that either. So for indexing, if you are trying to grab the individual character in a string, you have to make sure that you are inbound. In general, it goes from 0 all the way to length -1. That's what we have. Okay. Any questions? All right. The next thing is about slicing. Slicing would allow you to grab multiple characters together. It's like grab a substring from this original string. That's what slicing does. There are three forms of there are many forms of slicing. For example, let's use this one. Okay. So if you say name in the square bracket, you can provide two things or even one thing. Like for example, if you say going from 0 to 3, what does it mean? It means going from 0th location all the way to the 3rd location, but not including. So this is inclusive. This is inclusive. So it means 0, 1, and 2. This one would give me CSE. This one would give me CSE. Okay. You can also omit the first part. If I don't give you the first part, by default, it's assuming it's going from the very beginning, which is location 0. You can also say, okay, what if I give you a starting point, but I don't give you the ending point? If you omit the ending point, it assumes it's going to go all the way to the end of the list, including the end of the list. In other words, it goes to the length. Okay, so you can omit either side, and this would allow you to basically pick either the first part of the string or the second part. You can also say, I want to grab within a region. That's when you provide something like this. Any questions?
Oh. So for the name, how in the parentheses, when you have 2, does that mean you start on the second index, which is 1, or the second letter, which is?
It's always index. It's always
So
index.
you start on number 2?
Here. Any other questions? These are all indexes. What is offset? Offset basically is index, and I'm trying to explain why the index start from 0, because indexes, they are the offset of a certain position from the very beginning of the list. So just like if you have 3 people, you can number them, your person 1, person 2, person 3. That's fine. You can also number them based on the offset from the beginning of the list, beginning of the person. So this person, he or she is already there. So your offset to the very beginning of the line is 0. This second person, the offset from very beginning is 1. This one is 2. And that's basically index. Okay. So it's also, so the reason why index start from 0 is they are the offset from the beginning of the container. Okay. Any other questions? One thing you have to be very careful is if you say going from 2 to 4, just remember this 4 is not included. The ending point is not included. Okay. Let's take a break. I think it's about break time. We'll come back and we'll vote for this one. If you're back early, feel free to vote on it. Let's come back at 1 o'clock. Okay. So let's take a break. Come back at 1. I will open up the Zoom vote. If you want to vote, feel free. Okay, but take a break. Okay. All right. Let's finish up today's classes. Okay. So let's first vote in on this one. Okay, 12 of us already voted in. That's good. most of us said C. Let's see. Okay, let's see. So with name equals to CSE 8A, and then we say 2 all the way to the end. 2 all the way to the end. So the first part, this one would be E-8A. That's what we'll be expecting. Okay. And then the next thing is -2 to the end. This part is a little bit confusing to say, okay, -2 to the end. -2 is at this location all the way to the end. So it's going to be 8A. And then 1 to -1. From location 1 to -1. If negative offset confuse you, all you need to do is to add the negative offset with the length of the string. You add it with the length of the string, you get positive index, and that's what you need to do. So -1 plus the length of the string, which is 6, it becomes 5. So it's basically between 1 to 5. 1 to 5, but not including the last letter. So it's SE-A. So C is the right answer, in fact, here. Any questions about this part? So we're being part of the string. The major difference between indexing and this kind of slicing is, for indexing, you may go out of bounds. For slicing, you won't. You'll never be out of bounds. So, for example, I say, okay, I have name in here, right? Name is CSE 8A. And I say name, I say 10, then I'm out of bounds, right? I don't have position 10. But if I say name 1 to 10, this is going to give me okay, because from location 1 all the way to the end, and even though I'm out of bound in here, it doesn't really count those illegal positions as part of the slice. So you're never going to be out of bound if you use slice here. So for example, you say from 100 to 200 position, it's just going to be nothing. There's no error. There's no error in here. So it will work in this way. Okay. Any questions? Okay.
What did you write on the last one that says print name 1, and it says, does it say lane name, or what does it say?
I don't know which one I.
In the slides you were writing for the last one. That
Basically the offset, if the number is negative, you add it to the with the length of the string. So this is the length of the string, which is 6, right? So this would allow you to convert from negative index to positive index. So it's less confusing. So it's LEN parenthesis name.
okay, so you did 5 minus 1, or
No, it's -1 plus 6.
okay.
That's how you get 5.
And then 6 is from the negative index.
The
Or
6 is the length of the name,
Oh, okay.
which is 6. Any other questions? All right. So that's about slicing of a list. Okay. I think this one would give you enough exercises. Let's move on to the list. How about that? So before we move on to the list, I do want to talk about PA1 a little bit. Okay. So quiz 1, lab 1 is already done. Lab 1 is just to get started. PA1 is about the P1 is to calculate the area of a circle, right? the area of a ring in here. You have to create your own file, okay? And you can use the mark button to mark your submission. So every time you click on mark, you're going to be able to submit your code, and we will pick the latest submission as the one that we grade. Okay. So your job is to say, given the 3 points, you calculate the ring between P1 and P2. So the area, this ring area is the area of the outer circle minus the area of the inner circle, right? So make sure that you, but I don't think it will tell you which one is the outer circles one, which is the inner circles one. You just have to use the Euclidean distance to figure that out. You don't even need to use the square root, right? So make sure that you follow the instructions. One common thing that I've seen people make mistakes on is the format. Your format should be exactly the same format like this. You can't have extra space. You can't miss a space. You can't miss a lowercase letter or uppercase letter. So if that's the case, your code may be all wrong. Just because I use a lowercase for this E for enter, that's incorrect. Okay, when you submit it, you're going to be able to see it. So if I mark, really there's nothing in here that I can tell because my code is empty, but it's going to tell you you failed all the test cases, 0 out of 11 passed. Make sense? So make sure you finish this one before this Sunday night. Okay, you need to do a little bit of math, but that's about it. If you need to take the power, in Python, it is 2 asterisks next to each other. Like if x 2 asterisks 2, it means x squared. If I need to take the square root, it just say 0.5. So something to the power of 0.5 is the square root of that number. Any questions about this part before we move on to lists? All right. So we'll finish up the list. We'll see how far we can go. So a list is a collection of items. String is a collection of characters. A list is a collection of elements. So why do we need a list? A lot of times you're not going to say, I have 5 data points. Like I have 3 points, you calculate whatever the result I need. In general, if you are at the point to say, I need to write a piece of code to help me with the calculation, I, in general, have millions of data points. You can't just say, I create a million variables, right? There must be a way that you can store all those data in a single entity, and then you can process the entity using some sort of automated process. So that's why you need a list. A list is a collection of items in there, okay? So how do I create a list? You just say the name of the list equals to the point, the square bracket, and then each element is separated by a comma. Okay, so you may have a bunch of elements in here. But the list in Python doesn't have to have the same kind of data. In other words, your list may have like 2 integers, a string, and a float. That's fine. But in this class, we will only use the list as if it only has one type of data. Okay? So for example, I say my grades for the first 2 labs and a PA is 20, 33, 90. That's my grades. So Paul grades, this is a list. List is an object. I want to stress on this. So list is an object. What it does is to say, you have this big entity that we use something to point to it. So this Paul grades, we call this a reference variable. If we think about an analogy, objects are like houses. what is actually stored in this variable Paul grades is not the house itself, it's the address of the house. So if house is at location 9500 Gilman Drive, then Paul grades equals to 9500 Gilman Drive in La Jolla. The house itself is the object, it is stored actually at that location. You can write the address of a house on a piece of paper, but you can't put the house on a piece of paper, right? So that's kind of the difference between the object and this reference variable. We'll look at this more closely next week when we look at memory models. But you should know that lists, they're complicated entities, okay? So we have one list with 20, 33, 90, and Christine's grades is better than mine. So I just created two lists in here. And when you try to access the individual elements of a list, you use index, just like how you deal with the strings. Location 0, location 1, location 2, 0, 1, and 2. So just like before. If you say Paul grades square bracket 2, you're looking at 90. If you look at Christine's grade -2, if you use negative index, it's -1, -2, -3, going backward. The -2 is 1, 1. That's how you use the list. That's how you use the list. Are there any questions about list? You can index into a list. You can slice a list just like how we slice a string. There's no difference in here. Okay. All right. Now let's look at this example. Okay, so I have 3 students, Maggie, Tasnim, and Diego. And I add this one with Alicia and Wang. So what's going to happen if I add to this? Let's vote in. Where's my vote? There it is. Yingjun has gone through many rounds of updates. Sometimes I can't find the feature. All right, so I think we got this one. So when you add to this, you are basically merging their data together. So you're gonna see Maggie, Tasnim, Diego, Alisa, Wang in the same list. So you're gonna see 5 things in there. Questions? So when you add to this, you are merging them. You're merging them. You're union kind of this. This is like a union operation. Okay. Questions? All right. Next one. Indexing. And so we have constants. These are a bunch of mathematical constants. And I'm doing this thing. What will be printed out? All right. We'll stop the vote now. I will stop the vote. The most popular choice is C. Let's see. Let's stop my status. So the length of constants, the length of this list is 4. 4 minus 2 is 2. So I'm looking at the location 2. Remember, we start to count from 0. Location 2 is 9.8. C is the right answer. C is the correct answer. Any questions about this? You got to kind of analyze it inside out. So I'm looking for a certain thing inside constant. Now, what is that location? I'm looking at it. That's why you need to figure out the length and then move on here. Okay. How about this one? What would you say would be the result? I think we'll be able to finish everything we planned out for today. Okay. All right, the most popular choice is E, and the length is 4. So you are looking at location 4. I don't have location 4. It's going to be an index out of range error. Your code basically would crash. There's no location 4. Right, the last element has a location of length minus 1. There's no location length here. Okay. Questions about this?
Where did you get that it's 4?
Then what's your understanding of length?
Length is like where you look for the number.
Length is a function. Length will tell you how many things are in this string or in this list. Constant is a list. So there are 4 numbers in there, there are 4 things in there. That's why the length of this thing is 4. That's what the length function does. Okay. Other questions? I see one of you unmuted, but we can't. At least I can't hear anything. What the student is saying. Are there any other questions before we talk about? All right. So if your mic doesn't work, then you can type. Okay, and then I will come back to your question in a little bit. How about this one? Slicing. I have this constant, and I'm trying to slice it. What would you say the answer is? All right, most popular choice is D. Let's check. So going from location 1 all the way to the end, location 1 all the way to the end, including the end, this would be 2001, 9.8, 1.14. In other words, it's a sub list. So if you slice a list, you get a sub list. Okay. That's what you do. It's basically the same thing as slicing a string. Okay, if you understand how to slice a string, you understand how to slice a list. Any questions about this? Okay. Next thing. I slice it in this way. What's going to happen? Vote in again. We disagree with each other on this one. All right, we'll stop the vote. C and E are popular. C is this thing, the whole list. E is error. Now, for slicing, you're not going to see errors. For slicing, even though the number you put in there are big, they're not going to cause errors. Big numbers, small numbers are going to be ignored. So basically, if you omit the first part, it's going to say start from location 0 all the way to the end. And as you can see, 0, 1, 2, 3, and there's no location 5. There's no 4, there's no 5, but they will be ignored. It'll be the whole list. It'll be C. For indexing, which you only have one number in the bracket, that's when you're gonna be out of bound if the number is too big or too small. For slicing, you're not gonna see errors. You're not gonna see errors. Okay. So this one would slice the whole array out for you. Questions? Next one. How about this one? What would you say the answer is? From 55 to 5,555. All right, so very concentrated choice on E, that's correct. 55, there's no place for 55. So yeah, just give me a big range and there's nothing can be sliced out. Nothing can be sliced out. So it's just gonna be an empty list. It's gonna be an empty list. Okay. All right, so next one. Well, these are my TAs before, okay? So TAs 0 to 2 plus 0 to 3 to 4. What is the result? I'm slicing, right? All right. We disagree with each other on this one. Let's look at it. A and B dominating here. No one else voted for any other choices. So 0, 2. 0, 2 means these two are included. 2 is not included. So it's Vanessa and E4. And then 3 to 4. 3 to 4 is Tim. So A is the right answer. Remember, the ending point is not included. When you say going from A to B, location B is not included, is excluded. Okay, do not make that mistake. Okay. Any questions about this? All right, next thing. Membership. So you have this in. This is a keyword in Python. So X in Y means if X is a potential element of Y, it's going to be true. If X is part of Y. If X is not part of Y, then it's going to be false. So this would give you true, false result. And how about this one? You have a bunch of prime numbers, and I'm doing this thing. 2 in primes and 3 not in. Not in is not part of this thing. If 13 is not part of primes, it's going to be true. Otherwise, it's going to be false. So what would you say the answer is here? All right, we'll stop the vote. The answer is true, I believe. So 2 in primes is true, and 13 not in primes is also true. So true and true will be true. Okay. We have 2 more exercises, then we'll be done. This is the last vote. Index. Index basically would return the location of the first occurrence of what you're searching for. So index is more like find. So in other words, it's a find where 2 is. Return is location. When I say location, I always will always mean 0 index. Okay. So given this one, what would you say the answer is? Should be a quick vote. And then we have a coding challenge, and that's it. Okay. I hope all of us got this one. I think so. So out of all the votes I'm getting so far, we have everyone voted for C. In other words, where did 2 appear? 2 appeared at the location 0. So index means find. Okay. Last exercise. So you are given 2 lists. You have IDs of students and their corresponding grades. So this is called parallel list or parallel arrays. The corresponding position are the data for the same entity. Like for example, this student's ID is 10, the grade is A. This student's ID is 20, the grade is A minus. 30 is B plus, 40 is B plus, 50 is A plus. You have the ID, you have the grade. We want to write a function where I say, I give you the ID of the student, and obviously I give you these 2 lists. You return the grade of that student. If I give you 40, you're supposed to tell me B plus. If I give you 20, you're supposed to tell me A minus. So this function would return the grade, the letter grade of the student. And here is the link to the coding challenge. Let's work on this, and then we'll call it a day today. Okay, so please work on this coding challenge. Give me a vote once you're done with the coding challenge. One thing I want you to pay attention to is, what if I give you a ID that doesn't exist in there? Your code should not crash. Your code maybe return a double F if the ID is wrong. Right? You return illegal letter grade, double F, FF, if you give me the wrong ID. So that's what you need to do. Okay. One of you is done. One of you is done. Okay. If you're done with this coding project, give me a vote. I know how many people are done. All right. Let's work on this together. Right. So if this is the code, I'm trying to say, give me the ID and I will tell you the letter grade. So given these things, I would say, for example, print, look up grade, look up grade. I give you a 40 and then ID's grades. And I'm supposed to get a B plus, right? So for this function, I try, well, when you're writing Python code, try not to say, oh, me here, press tab. That's a bad way for you to align things. I always go to the previous line, press enter. So it's gonna tabulate it for me. If I don't want this tab, I press backspace to delete it. Instead of pressing tab, you don't want to press tab or space on your keyboard when you write Python code. Okay, you always use the IDE to align it for you. I can basically find out where this ID is. I would say location equals to IDs dot index. What's the name? Student ID, right? And I'll just return grades at this location. That's it. So 2 lines. So I say Python exercise.py. It tells me P plus. So it works fine. Right? It works fine. But what if I say I give you an ID of 55? I don't have it. If that's the case, if I run my code, you can see an error. don't be afraid of these errors. What I want to do in general is I want to look at the last part, like this part. In this file, in line 2, in lookup grade, there's something wrong in here. 55 is not in the list. In other words, index, if it doesn't exist in the list, it's going to give me an error. How do I fix it? The way to do it is, if this thing is not in the list, right? So if student ID not in this IDs, I'll just return FF, double F. And then I would continue with the rest. Because this return FF would terminate this entire call. It won't actually come here anymore. You can say, well, do I need else? You can, but you don't need to, okay? If this is the case, if I run it, it's gonna tell me FF because there's no ID of 55 here. Any questions about this part? So using the membership function, you can kind of check it first. Membership doesn't tell you where it is. Index will tell you. But if it doesn't exist, index will give you an error. So use membership to avoid that error, and then use index to find it. Any questions about this part? All right, so to summarize, okay, before we finish today, we covered a ton of stuff. Number one, we talk about logistics. Tomorrow we have a quiz. And on Sunday night, we have a PA due. Okay, our lab was already due yesterday. Next, we talk about strings. We talk about lists. We also talk about conditional, right? So if else statements. Hopefully, you understand most of the stuff, but I think we are done today. We finished like 10 minutes early. Normally, we will always finish a little bit early. If you have questions, I'll be happy to answer them. But other than that, we are done today. Thank you, everyone. Okay, thank you. You are good to go. Are there any questions? What are we allowed to discuss together as a group? Nothing. Try not to talk to each other. You can talk about high-level stuff like what's your idea, but don't collaborate. Everything in this class is individual. Although it's open book, open notes, but try to do it individually. Okay. Any other question? I'll give you. You can try to work on it. Okay. Okay. Any other questions? Quiz tomorrow is open notes. Yes.